I brought here today is actually how trustworthy are GeoAI models trained with OpenStreetMap labels. I found it is actually the right timing for me to raise this question here, since our previous speakers have already raised certain concerns about the trustworthiness of our GeoAI models. And today I will then look into this problem here, let's say in a detailed way about the trustworthiness of those GeoAI models trained with OpenStreetMap labels. I think I did just start our topic today with this simple question that how often do you use OpenStreetMap labels in your daily research work? Try to seek an answer for this question here. I actually did a simple survey in the Web of Science core collection. And when we searched for the topic of building attributes building footprint recognition, we found about 200 papers published in the past 5 years. And among these 200 papers, we found 67 of them actually utilized OpenStreetMap labels during their training issue. And within them, we even found 12 of these papers that relies only on labels from OpenStreetMap for the whole training and testing issue. So these facts here actually tells us the widespread usage of OpenStreetMap labels in our daily research work. And this is actually not surprising since we know OpenStreetMap, they are free, have open access, and also global coverage and even continuous updates. So these are actually good reasons for researchers to use their labels. However, when we talked about OpenStreetMap, we always need to say that it is a volunteer contributed platform. That means anybody interested in this thing could just contribute. So this kind of labels in OpenStreetMap, we always say that they are imperfect. Specifically, we will mention that they are incomplete and incorrect. So faced with this situation here, we then just raised up a further question that how trustworthy are those GeoAI models trained with these OpenStreetMap labels? So this is actually the question I tried to give a little bit insight here today. To answer this question, we actually choose to focus on the building attribute labels in OpenStreetMap, considering building is actually one of the key informations contained in OpenStreetMap, and also the building labels have been already widely used in many researches. So we focus on these building attributes here in this topic, and specifically, I will try to answer this question step by step. Firstly, the question is, we always say the OpenStreetMap labels are imperfect. Then to which extent are they imperfect, or which is actually our first question here, how trustworthy are these OpenStreetMap building labels? And then we go a little bit further away to answer how trustworthy are those GeoAI models trained with these imperfect OpenStreetMap labels. And furtherly, we even want to go a little bit further away to have an insight to look how do the quality issues that exist in OpenStreetMap labels actually affect our GeoAI models. So yeah, these are the three main questions. I will try to give a little bit answers today. And I think we can just first start with this question. So to get a quality assessment of the OpenStreetMap building labels, we actually conducted such a case study here, choosing the region of Bavaria as our study area, considering it could be as a representative European city. And here, actually, in the first step, we created a novel dataset called OSM benchmark dataset. It covers the region of Bavaria and includes actually almost most of the buildings in Bavaria. That might be more than 9 million building instances. So what exactly we included in our dataset here is that we, on one hand, have imperfect building attribute labels from OpenStreetMap, and on the other hand, we have their reliable building attribute labels from our cadastral map. And as a third component here, we also have the corresponding area images for our inference issue. So for the last two components here, we are actually taking the data provided by the Survey and Mapping Department of Bavaria. Thanks for their open dates, so we can just conduct the survey here. And yeah. We can have a detailed look about one example showing here. So we can see this is one example in our dataset. We have its corresponding area images showing in the left, and then in the middle we have attributes label maps from both OpenStreetMap and cadastral map. So we can see here, in order to do a comprehensive investigation here, we not only include the building footprints, but also two more attributes that both exist in OpenStreetMap and cadastral maps, that is the function and height attributes. So this is one example for our dataset. So this dataset actually provides a quite good foundation for our research here. So based on this study, we conduct our quality assessment here. As I just showed, we have corresponding labels from both cadastral map and the OpenStreetMap. So the first quality assessment we could conduct here is the so-called pixel-wise assessment. That is, when we take cadastral map as ground truth, we can directly compare them pixel by pixel and then directly compute criteria like precision and recall help us to assess their quality. And specifically here we choose precision and recall to show their qualities. As we all know, the precision we mainly also called as correctness in many research works, and the recall also called as completeness in many research works. So here we can have the result about the completeness and correctness for all these three attributes in our dataset. So as we can see, for footprints, it actually exhibits a high completeness and correctness, especially compared with the other two attributes. And when it comes to function, we see it actually shows great quality issues in its completeness. And then things becomes really severe when it comes to height, since we have only a completeness of about 0.4%, and the correctness is just less than 50%. So yeah, this is our first experiment here, giving us a overview about how the how the labels quality exists in OpenStreetMap. But in many times, people may not only interested about these pixel-wise results. They may also be interested about building-wise quality. That means they do not only want to know the quality pixel by pixel, but building instance by building instance. So we here furtherly conduct such a building-wise quality assessment. So to do this quality assessment, one important step is that we need to matching the corresponding building polygons in cadastral map and OpenStreetMap. So to do this, we performed such a criteria following FAN, which is proposed in 2014. It actually mentions that an OpenStreetMap annotated building polygon is only considered as correctly labeled when compared with the cadastral map building polygon. It meets this following criteria. So based on this simple rule here, we conducted our building-wise quality assessments. I think we are not really interested about so many details about the methods, but we are really interested about the results here. So here is our building-wise assessment results. We can see on the left we have the summary statistics for all these three attributes, and on the right we have showing just some visual examples. So for footprint, we can see again it shows about 73% of the buildings of the real buildings are actually correctly labeled in OpenStreetMap, and we also have 7% of them wrongly labeled and 20% missing labeled. And then when it comes to function, we could see about 15% of these building instances are correctly labeled their functions in OpenStreetMap, while we have about 4% of them wrongly labeled, and the last majority, about 81%, are just missing labeled. And actually, things become really difficult when we come to the height attribute, since it only has 0.1% buildings that are correctly labeled, and another 0.1% buildings are wrongly labeled, with the left majority buildings are just missing their labels in OpenStreetMap. So yeah, this is our assessment here about the quality of the building of OpenStreetMap building labels in our case study. Just as quick summary here that considering we include three different attributes here, we have to say for this first question, it really needed to answer attribute by attribute, like the footprint shows highest quality, while the other two shows obvious quality issues. The dataset we proposed can actually be reached through this link here, but it is still under some final reviewing, so maybe not fully public right now, but you can just like take a photo and it will be right public soon. So this is our first question. We now keep in mind the quality issues about these OpenStreetMap labels. We can then come to the second question, that is how trustworthy then are these GeoAI models trained with these imperfect OpenStreetMap labels? Then how can we perform such a quality assessment of these GeoAI models trained with OpenStreetMap labels? The strategy we applied here is that we try to choose exactly same model and we train it twice. For the first time, we train it with the labels from cadastral map, and for the second time, we train it with the labels from OpenStreetMap. For these two experiments, we use exactly the same model and experimental settings, and the only difference just happens for the label sources. So when we compare the final results we obtained for these two experiments here, we can then get an insight into the quality of those OSM-driven models. So this is our basic idea here, and we can then just have a look at the final results showing here. So for all these three attributes, these two experiments I just mentioned have been performed. And if we look at the final results with those models trained with cadastral map can actually perform as the upper boundary for each of these attributes here. So when we compare the results achieved by a cadastral map-driven model and OpenStreetMap-driven model, we got the values just showing here. So when we take a detailed look into these values here, we can first gauge the results that decreases in all of these attributes actually happening when we transfer from cadastral map to OpenStreetMap labels. And this kind of decrease is progressively increasing from footprints to function and to height. And so based on this phenomena here, we can actually first come to a simple conclusion that trustworthiness of these baseline models have actually been affected by imperfect OpenStreetMap labels, while this kind of impact has to be analyzed attribute by attribute, since it only brings a quite a small impact on building footprint, we can say, while the impact it brings for function and height attributes are relatively large. So this is our first overview here about the quality assessment of these GeoAI models. However, we might have a further question, since here we just tried a rather simple model. We will say a rather classic model with the unit structure and the classic ResNet as encoder. However, nowadays with the advanced in deep learning models, actually many advanced methods have been proposed to deal with imperfect labels. So we would then curious to see that if this baseline model really fails, what about some other advanced strategies that actually clarified themselves with ability to deal with imperfect label issues? So to answer this further question, we actually tried several advanced strategies like this is listed here. For these three strategies, actually, we can have a detailed look here. Besides the baseline model, we actually tried 6 more advanced models with 3 of them are actually semi-supervised learning models, like showing in the middle, which are actually originally proposed to deal with the issue of incomplete labels. And then we also have 3 other methods which characterized as robust learning models, which are proposed to deal with incorrect label issues. So these are the advantages models we are trying to conduct in our experiment to see if they can really deal with these real-world OpenStreetMap quality issues. And specifically, we want to see how well they perform for our attribute like function, which has show great decrease for the baseline model. And here we just first choose the results of all these all these advanced models for our function attribute prediction. And we can see most of these advanced strategies can only bring certain improvement for its final mean IOU value, except this mean teacher. And we even found that the fixed match and importance weighting method can really help us bring the most improvement in its final results. However, the thing is, if we try to compare the model we have achieved by fixed match and importance reweighting with the CM-driven model, we can still witness a decrease of about 10%. So the conclusion we might say here is that although this kind of advanced models can bring certain improvements, however, deal with the complex quality issues in OpenStreetMap labels, the improvements they can really bring here is rather limited. And we can then come to another attribute about height here. So these are our results we obtained for the height attribute. And we can see facing with the really poor quality about height attributes, not all the advanced strategies can really bring certain improvement. But luckily, we still have the unit match method, which can bring certain improvement for its mean IOU values. But again, if we compare the final results achieved by unit match method here with our upper boundary, which achieved by the CM-driven model, we still witnessed a decrease in the mean IOU of about 27%, which actually tells us the models trained with these height labels from OpenStreetMap is really not that trustworthy. So this is our experiment here we have conducted for our second question. Just as a simple summary here, again, regarding the second question, we have to say it really needs to answer attribute by attribute. Like for the footprints attribute, we generally consider the GeoAI models have the ability to deal with its quality issues. So these models we have tested here can be considered as trustworthy. However, when it comes to function and height, we can firstly see obvious decrease in its performance for the baseline models. And then, although luckily we have some advanced techniques can really help us bring certain improvement, but the real improvement it can bring to us is actually rather limited, especially compared with our upper boundary here. So yeah, this is our second question. And then thirdly, we want to go even a little bit further away to see how do the quality issues in OpenStreetMap actually affect the GeoAI model's performance. That is, we always say that the OpenStreetMap labels have certain incompleteness and incorrectness. Then how actually does our GeoAI models changes with this completeness and correctness of these labels? So let's come to the third question here. And for this question, we try to first answer this point that how does the incompleteness of these OpenStreetMap labels really affect the GeoAI models? That is, we want to know when we have different labels of label completeness in OpenStreetMap, how does our GeoAI models will be influenced? So this is our question here. And to answer this question here, we actually did a series of simulation experiments. That is, we try to randomly select 80, 60, 40, and 20% of our original OpenStreetMap labels. And we want to see with this limited number of training labels for each attribute, how will their performance changes. So here we have the results plot like showing the blue lines here are giving us the result for completeness when we randomly select these 80, 60, 40, and 20% of labels. And the red lines just gives us the results about mean IOUs. So we can see when we decrease the percentage of OpenStreetMap label amount from like 100% to 20 they originally have, we can actually witness for function, there is a decrease of about 2%. And then when it comes to function, the decrease is about 2.5%. Actually, for these two attributes here, the decrease is about 2%. It compared with their originally rather high mean RU values, which might be 78%. We have to say this kind of decrease is actually not that much. However, when it comes to the third attribute height here, we can see it actually experienced a decrease of about 3%. And this 3%, when we compared with its original mean RU value of about 26%, it actually counts a large portion. So this is how the three attributes here will really perform when we use different labels of incompleteness of these labels. And here we choose the incompleteness issue, and then we give a further insight into the incorrectness issue. So here again, we make a series of simulation experiments. That is, we randomly replace 20, 40, 60, 80, and even 100% of our original OpenStreetMap labels with those correct cadastral map labels. And we want to see how this time will the GeoAI models changes along with the changes in correctness. So the results are then shown here. We can see if we increase the portion here we replaced with cadastral map labels to 100%. That means we use all the correct labels from cadastral map. For footprints, it only observed an increase of about 0.3%, which is actually could be ignored in many cases. And then when it comes to function, this time we witness a rather large changes, that is about 8%. And then when it comes to height, the changes is about 5%, which compared to its original value is also a rather large one. So here we tried to give us an insight about how will our GeoAI models changes if the correctness or completeness of its labels really changes. And the conclusion here, we could just make it rather simple that for functions, we think both changes in completeness and correctness didn't really cause many issues for its final performance. However, when it's to come to function, we could see it actually rather sensitive to the changes in correctness. And also when it comes to height, considering its originally rather poor quality in OpenStreetMap labels, we can only say that any changes in its completeness and correctness really could bring great differences in the final model's performance. Yeah, so that's the third question here. Yeah, finally, just a simple summary here. So today's topic, I tried to give us an insight about these three different questions. The first is we try to answer how trustworthy are OpenStreetMap building labels through our case study in Bavaria. And then based on these imperfect OpenStreetMap labels, we assess the qualities of those GeoAI models trained with OpenStreetMap labels. And finally, we even give a deeper insight into how the GeoAI models are changes with the different quality issues in OpenStreetMap labels. Yeah, I think that's all my presentation today, and I'm now open for any questions, but maybe only English.